Welcome to Shelf Byte here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Shelf Byte features spoiler-free book and audiobook reviews in 5 minutes or less. I am your host, Tamara Ford, and if you'd like to chat with me about the book reviewed in this episode, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shelf Addiction. A quick note before I get started. If you enjoy this show and would like even more content, please consider becoming a Shelf Addiction Patreon subscriber. You'll gain access to exclusive Patreon-only content, including private live streams, unedited video of podcast recordings, stickers, and more based on the subscription level. Please go to shelfaddiction.com and click the Support Us tab. If you'd like to show your support in a non-monetary way, please share this episode with your bookish friends or on your favorite social media space. Thanks for your continued support. Today I'm reviewing a book that has been called one of the most anticipated books of 2020, and it's already the most controversial so far. So because I have so much to say about this book and about the current controversy of this title, we're going to go long today, so enjoy the extended Shelf Bite. I received American Dirt by Janine Cummings via an influencer program. I received the audiobook version in exchange for an honest review. The audiobook is narrated by Yoreli Arzamendi. The unabridged audiobook is 16 hours and 55 minutes long, and the release date is January 21st, 2020. The audiobook publisher is Macmillan Audio. So back in December last year, I heard a lot of hype about this title, so of course I downloaded it for my own review. I sort of waited until January to read it on purpose just because I wanted to, release a review within its release month. Clearly, I missed January, but that's only because I've kind of been thinking about what I wanted to say in this review. And that is because I finished this book literally 2 days before Oprah announced it as her next book club read. I thought it was actually pretty funny because usually Oprah and I don't have similar taste in books. And by that I mean usually her books just don't resonate with me and I just don't love them as much as she does. But in this case, I was pleasantly surprised because after I had just finished the book, I was thinking, wow, I really kind of enjoyed that. And here she is announcing it. So I was kind of cool with seeing that. But then not even a day later, all of the things started happening. And by that, I mean there were lots of stories from different points of view, which culminated in a controversy around this book. It was written by a non-Mexican about a story of a Mexican mother and son crossing the border illegally and running from a cartel. So after, several news stories broke, I was kind of wavering on how I viewed this title. There are some real notable and serious things being said about this book. So while I did think it was a good story overall, which I will break down to you in more detail, I understand there are some concerns about the authenticity and stereotyping in this book. And for a more nuanced take on that, I have provided several links below in the show notes that you can take a look at for yourself. And, you can make your own decision on that. If you know me even a little bit, then you know that I am an American Black woman, aka African American. So I am not Mexican, nor have I ever lived in Mexico. I have not lived in that type of environment. And I am very thankful and grateful that I grew up the way that I did. With that being said, I do understand how some could be offended and consider this book cultural appropriation. It is fiction. With that being said, I do understand how difficult it is for you to be a person writing in a voice for a minority experience that you haven't experienced yourself is very complex and hard to do in a sensitive way. For a non-Black person to write from my point of view would surely have some things that are incorrect. This is a delicate thing that should be treated as such. Research should have been top priority above and beyond, even as simple as having native Spanish speakers from Mexico going over the language in the book. Even that would have helped possibly calm some of the complaints for this title. I'm not going to get into it much further than that here, but I think I might on my Patreon page. So if you want to, dig deeper into my point of view on this topic, you'll need to be on my Patreon page. So with all that said, I'm going to review this audiobook as a work of fiction. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that I thought made it a good story overall, even though I feel strongly that if you don't like something that the author has written, or if you feel that this is not for you, do not read it. Do not buy it. Don't borrow it from the library. Don't give it any additional attention. If you don't feel that way and you feel like you want to give the book a chance or the audiobook a try, I say go for it. It's an individual choice. If you haven't been catching the news and you know nothing about this book, I'm going to provide a little bit from the publisher summary. Lydia Perez lives in the Mexican city of Acapulco. She runs a bookstore. She has a son, Luca, the love of her life, and a wonderful husband who is a journalist. And while there are cracks beginning to show in Acapulco because of the drug cartels, her life is, by and large, fairly comfortable. Even though she knows they'll never sell, Lydia stocks some of her all-time favorite books in her store. And then one day a man enters the shop to browse and comes up to the register with a few books he would like to buy. Javier is an erudite. He is charming, and unbeknownst to Lydia, he is the jefe of the newest drug cartel that has gruesomely taken over the city. When Lydia's husband's tell-all profile of Javier is published, none of their lives will ever be the same. Forced to flee, Lydia and 8-year-old Luca soon find themselves miles and worlds away from their comfortable middle-class existence. Instantly transformed into migrants, Lydia and Luca ride La Vista, trains that make their way north toward the United States, which is the only place Javier's reach doesn't extend. As they join the countless people trying to reach El Norte, Lydia soon sees that everyone is running from something. But what exactly are they running to? Okay, so that is the synopsis from the publisher on Goodreads. Sounds like a good book, right? It does sound like a good book. So let's talk a little bit about the characters first. I do feel that the characters are very dynamic, and Lydia and her son, as well as others, change as this journey goes on. When it comes to befriending new people, creating a new family, there's no way that these characters can make a journey this huge change in their lives, for better or for worse, and not have some type of notable internal transformation. And that did occur for the most part for these characters. I did have some problems with Lydia. For someone who is so smart, so responsible, she's a business owner. Her husband even stated she's one of the smartest people he knows. She was very, very naive, very, very naive. And it was almost hard to kind of understand that contrast, because when Javier comes into her shop, he has 2 goons with him. He has 2 guards. He's got he seems like he's got money. And when he keeps coming back again and again, he's got these guards. So, there are clues here that Lydia is choosing to ignore because she likes his attention, etc. So some of the things that Lydia is doing early on in the book, or, throughout the book, as we learn the history as to, what led up to the horrific event that kicked off this story, it really made me not like her as a character. But I do feel as the story reached its end, she had transformed some, and that made me more accepting of her. Now, the plot, let's talk about that. So the plot was definitely fast-paced, in my opinion, with all of the sub-story lines going on with the sisters from Honduras and a handful of people that Lydia and Luca kind of rely on during their journey. It definitely keeps things moving. There are definitely some sad points in the books where some really awful things happen to these characters, and some of it is hard to swallow. There are definitely trigger warnings. It should be noted that there is rape in this book. There's obviously murder, lots of violence, as well as family love, perseverance, and friendship, kind of all wrapped up into this story that makes just this amalgamation of emotions going on while you're reading this. It makes it memorable, if nothing else. The action scenes of them running and jumping on and off the trains and some other parts of the journey on foot, were they accurate? I don't know. As someone that's never had to walk across the Mexican border, I have no clue. But what I do know, as a person reading a fictional book, it made for a fast-moving plot. I do think this is a good book club read because of all of the controversy going on, as well as the content of the book. It would make for an engaging and thought-provoking conversation with any book club. I did listen to this on audiobook, so of course I need to talk a little bit about the narrator, Yareli Arizmendi. I did really like her narration. I think that she did a pretty good job overall, and this was difficult content, and I think that she was successful in reading this difficult content. I would definitely look for more books with her name by it. Like I said, I enjoyed it. She didn't have any mouth noises, no deep breaths, anything like that. I enjoyed her cadence. She was easy to listen to at a speed of 1.25 without any issues. She was a value add to the story. Now for my rating. This is where the rating becomes a little bit more complex. As I thought about it and read some of the comments of other people, it kind of made me realize some of the fatal flaws in this book, which a lot of people are very upset about. So I have changed my rating, and my rating is now a 3 out of 5. I do think that it was a good attempt, but there definitely needed to be some more research, someone with language helping, and definitely fewer stereotypes. As a person of color, I did notice a few things myself that kind of set off some alarms, but I kind of just let it go, I guess would be the right way to say that. But they're there. It can't be denied. It's definitely stereotypical in some ways, and that should have been handled with a little bit more sensitivity. Find me on the Patreon page or in the Shelf Addiction official Facebook group and let me know your thoughts on this title. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Did you not read it because of the controversy, or did you read it in spite of it? I want to know your point of view on this, so let's talk about it and get this discussion started. So I'm going to leave things there. And again, if you want to hear further thoughts on that will be available on my Patreon page, and definitely check me out there. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode. And until next time, happy reading. Take care, everyone.